Speed is crucial. Having as many features will make you much slower.
If these are the more important ones and the most important ones, let's focus on those and we'll do the secondary ones later.
My recommendation always is move fast. And we were just disappointed, right? The way how it...
Disappointed? Crushed?
Crushed.
Too late. Perfect.
One thing that separates top startups from the rest, and I know that you both love talking about that, is speed. Top startups move at least 3 times faster than the rest. So let's talk about why speed is crucial when talking about thinking, decision-making, acting for the startups.
You know, it's an absolutely fantastic topic. And it requires a lot of detective work, because if you say human beings one set of human beings can do things 3 times faster than another, it's unbelievable. In 1996, when Amazon was just beginning, there was an ad where Jeff Bezos was looking for software developers who are very smart, can handle complex systems, and do sophisticated software development in 1/3 the time that anybody else expects. When I first saw this, I thought, wow, this is, you know, aspirational. And then when I started looking around in World War II university, what people did during the war and what the very best startups do, it's a standard. It's not an exception amongst the best startups. Because the first benefit that it gives you is a chance to outrun the competition. The second benefit that it gives you is, you know, the market's going to change, and you want to be able to be there at the moment when you get ahead of the market. But it has other benefits that are almost hysterically funny. Why are the companies that do projects 3 times more quickly or even 4 times more quickly, why are those projects less expensive? And if you talk to the people who do this, they laugh and say, look, if you have a deadline that you think is unreasonable, okay, the first thing you learn is, I've got to focus. This is not about running around helter-skelter. I've got to put my brain to work as to how I'm going to do this. And if you ask the leader, for example, Steve Jobs with the iPod, where it was supposed to be done in 18 months, he said, we have to do it in 9. He would laugh and say, well, if you do it in 9 months rather than 18, people have less chance to spend and waste money. And it turns out to be true. But the thing that is the most counterintuitive and maybe the most important was developed by the people who did the Sojourner Mars rover that landed on Mars in '97. And Donna Shirley, extraordinary woman, still unknown, introduced a very different way of thinking. She said, you know, being fast and expensive, okay, isn't being fast, it's just expensive. Being fast and having poor quality isn't being fast, it's just a disaster. Our job is to be fast and higher quality and less expensive. You can understand the dynamic on less expensive, you just have less opportunity to spend. Look at all the people who were caught short by AI and are trying to catch up instead of getting ahead of it. So being 3 times faster is not heroism. Let's go back to the beginning, to Amazon. This 3 times faster idea was born with software developers. These are developers that we want to hire. But it permeated the culture. What caused one click to be so important? They knew that we as customers, when we want something, we're kind of like children. We want it now. They understood that. Today, even today, if I use Amazon versus another website, Amazon takes me 3 to 4 times less because of one click. But it also went in the other direction when they built Amazon Web Services as a byproduct of what they were doing, they built a $100 billion side company within just several years. So this speed thing is fascinating and intriguing because it's fractal. It works for tiny teams, medium-sized teams, and mega teams.
And we see a lot of the times where, the startup founders, they put so many features that they are going to tackle. Yeah. And I always say that having as many features will make you much slower. Why? Because you're not focusing. You're trying to bring as many features as possible because you think that this is your competitive advantage. Whereas you have to focus instead in order to be faster, to beat your competitors, to get your share of the market, and then expand, then go with the features. So that's also about the speed.
Great point. There, if you do the research on this, and this was published in Forbes 3 or 4 months ago, there are 24 distinct, what I call speed games. Mm-hmm. Things that you can do to move faster without blowing up the ship. And there are obvious things that people don't do. Parallel processing, find the bottleneck and fix it. But to your point, Ivana, one of the top 3 or 4 is ask the customer, what do you really care about? I mean, really care about. And then ask the customer, well, kind of what's secondary? And then ask the customer, what do you flat out don't care about and would never pay for? Okay? Once you have that information and you look at your product plan, you say, why are we doing these tertiary features? We don't need them at all. Out.
Yeah.
But then there's a tougher decision. If these are the more important ones and the most important ones, let's focus on those and we'll do the secondary ones later because this is the most. So this is where to get to speed, you have to have the kind of relationship with the customer where you can have this conversation because which of those features will they die for? And which of those features will they not pay a penny for? And my goodness, why are we working on these to slow down the progress that matters to get on the critical path?
Can I ask you, Natalia, because you work with Ukraine and with Ukrainian customers and with Ukrainian founders, many times I see that for Ukrainian founders, speed is something they're very scared of because of the time of uncertainty, and they think that sometimes speed is a killer. So they want to take it slow, to make sure they have the right product, to make sure they hit the right part.
I've heard it, and my recommendation always is move fast. But if we talk about the defense, and we see a lot of startups now in Ukraine in the defense industry, there you have to move even faster, by the factor maybe of 3. And, this is an important point. How does this factor of speed comes out when you make your presentation to us? I'll give you an example. I think we both, all of us were at that presentation where we're talking to a defense startup, mm-hmm. and we asked the founder when your product will be on the market, right? And again, we're talking about it.
We actually said, now. When is it going to be on the battlefield? When is it going to have an impact on the battlefield?
And I think he told us, 12 months, 10 to 12 months, and we were just disappointed, right? The way how it
disappointed,
crushed, right? So
you want to just stop talking to them and say, hey.
We continued, and actually it turned out to be we have a relationship with the founder, but at that point it was a setback. I think the sense of urgency that we talked about, the speed, and there's a third characteristic, which is obsession with your idea, with your startup, your passion for it. And when I talk about obsession, it's literally obsession, and when I explain it to when people ask me, what is it there? Like when you wake up in the morning, you shower, you think about your idea. You go back at night, you're about to fall asleep, you read something, you still think about it. You constantly think about your idea. How is it that you're going to do it faster, better? And again, this is just advice for the founders, because this is the characteristic that is very important for investors, to see that passion, to see that sense of urgency, and that ability to iterate your product and move fast.
Ivana, I want to be an advocate for the person that you described who wants to be very careful, and with 2 suggestions. Number 1, when it's 80% ready, let it go. Because that is the fastest way to get real-world feedback from the customer. When you get that feedback, you'll get to 90%, let it go again. Do not wait, because you will achieve perfection in your mind, and then the customer doesn't buy it. And a real-world example, there's a delightful CEO of a healthcare system in the northwestern United States called Providence Health. And the CEO's name was Rod Hochman. And he had tendency to hire Amazon alumni. And he said, well, you know, let me tell you how working with them was different. He said, we'd have a meeting and we'd go for 45 minutes and one of these people from Amazon would say, we've talked for 45 minutes, we haven't mentioned the customer once. And he said, ouch. But then he said that the proof was in how they operated. That they had to produce some internal website for the people working in a hospital. And they did it in 2 weeks, and they gave it to test. And people screamed at them. They were angry. They were so unhappy with what it worked, with how it didn't work. And the guys were just unfazed. They went to work, and 2 weeks later, they came out with version 2. So 4 weeks from zero. And this time there were more complaints, but a lot of people say, hey, this is pretty good. And you know, it would be better if you could add this feature or this feature, and let me tell you why. And then 6 weeks into the process, version 3 came out, and people were ecstatic. So I said to Rod, well, Rod, what would have happened if you gave it to your IT department? And he said, well, first of all, it would take 9 months. Secondly, he said, it wouldn't work. So keep that story in mind, because if you don't have quality, you don't have anything.
I think that was Reid Hoffman, right? That said that if you launch your product and you don't feel embarrassed, then you've launched too fast, too late.
Too late, perfect.
Yeah, so
perfect.
I mean, you don't have to be a perfectionist, you know, to launch. You have to launch as soon as possible, as quick as possible. And then the customers, if they know that you've launched an early version of the product, well, they will be okay with all the bugs and, you know, all the mistakes that it will bring along. But
yeah.
if you're launching the final version of the product and it has all the mistakes and all the frustration, they're not going to forgive.
Exactly. I'll give you another very pragmatic example that I learned the very hard way. You know, when we have internal meetings, we have this device where somebody draws the short straw and has to prepare a memo on the competition, for example, or on this customer segment, so that people come to a meeting prepared with facts instead of an exchange of opinion. And when I learned about what people do on speed, you know, this process would take 12 to 15 hours. And I said, okay, I've got to do it in 5. And I taught myself how to do it. And the first question was, what do my partners need to know? I mean, there are a lot of things that are fascinating, but we're supposed to make 3 decisions. What do they need to know? Number 1. Number 2 is the deadline. Number 3, do they really want to read an 8-page memo? Or do they want the key facts, the key points, the key actions, and the key questions to be resolved? 15 hours happened in 5. 8 pages became 1. And did I miss things? Yeah, but I got 95% of them. And the way I learned that was by being the customer myself. What did I need the research associate to give me to have this be what actions will we design meeting, rather than, you know, our favorite kind of meeting, exchange of opinion, okay? No, Ivana, you're wrong. I think it's this. And you say, no, Adriana, I think it's this. Best way to waste time. In fact, if you want to be really good at speed, have an internal competition. In the last month, okay, how much of our time did we waste? And write out the points, okay? We did stuff that nobody would implement. We spent 2 hours exchanging opinions without getting the fact. And have an internal competition. Who gives the best answer to the question of how much time did we waste in the last month? We worked on the attributes that nobody cared about. You'll find out the ratio is 30%, and it could be as high as 50%. But it is priceless to have this sheet of paper that says, how do we waste time? Because we're good at it, We have practice, and if we don't write it down, we'll continue doing it into the future.
And also one more thing that I'd like to mention. I think similar thing goes to fundraising. So when startup founders are fundraising, is again what I love when they reach out to Angel One and they don't just say, hey, we're looking to get some money, let's have a Zoom call. What I love about the founders, not everyone, but some who reach out and say, hey, we'd love to have a chat with you, to have a call with you. Can you tell us what are the metrics that you're looking for? What is your fund good at? And then this timeline that we're talking to startup, trying to figure out whether we like and where we want to get into these relations, whether we want to invest, it drastically, becomes much, much smaller.